If you want to cut the amount of time you work in half and have that time be more efficient than it was prior, then you should listen to deep work, the strategies I will teach you. Here's some examples. For instance, and these are all ChatGPT estimates, so they could be wrong, but from my understanding, they're pretty accurate. Without deep work, your average workload is going to be 3 to 4 hours, and on a weekly average, that's 15 to 20 hours. But with deep work, you cut that in half from 1 to 2 hours, and it's only 5 to 10 hours of work, which is a 50% reduction, and also you're going to get better results because of the way you're using your time. With an average 9 to 5, this is something actually the book talks about. We'll get into that a lot of the time you spend working isn't really effective. For instance, when I worked at a fast food company, there were a lot of periods of times where you'd just be standing around and you weren't necessarily doing anything. You're just kind of looking like you're doing something, which is also something we'll get later into this video. Where deep work, you can cut that time in half. Depends on the job. It's a little more specific. But with extreme cases, you could actually completely skip the 9 to 5. Or like when I say 9 to 5, I mean like that 8 hours of work, like an 8-hour work shift, by focusing for 3 to 4 hours of deep work in a day. And if this seems insane, then keep listening. For instance, this is a marketing channel. The reason I'm actually creating this is because a friend asked me a question, and I'm creating this video to answer his question. For a marketing firm, which if you guys are interested in joining one, most marketing workers are buried in busy work and interruptions, where deep work can help you create better campaigns, clear strategies, and have less burnout. Also, you don't need more time. You need more clarity and fewer distractions, which is one of the big ideas deep work is. So let's just look at this, because this is a beautiful title. How to basically lock in. And the answer is deep work. What is deep work, you might be asking? And if you have heard if you've heard of deep work before, bear with me. It's still a good reminder. So these are 2 professional definitions I actually have from the book. I read through that not too long ago. But I created simpler definitions just so it's easier to understand. Deep work is working with high focus on thought-demanding tasks, while shallow work is working with distractions on easy-to-do tasks. So, with deep work, you're really focusing. There are no distractions around, and it's on work. For instance, let's say for my channel, creating these like editing. Editing for me is deep work because I need to really focus on how I want to finish the project. Also, brainstorming ideas. That's deep work. I'm sitting and I'm thinking. For marketing, there are different applicable ways. For homework, it's sitting down and just doing the math, doing the science, doing whatever essay you have to write. That is deep work. Where shallow work is, it could actually be doing the same task, like writing the essay or coming up with ideas, but you have a phone or something playing in the background. Even music can be considered a distraction at times. So the problem is distractions. There's so many distractions you can get caught up in the modern world. We have social media, we have video games, but gambling on there. And I just actually introduced another one, music. Music can also be a distraction. How do we find focused success in a distractive world? Deep work. It's the answer. So let's get straight into how to perform deep work. The key to developing a deep work habit is to move beyond good intentions and add routines and rituals to your work life, designed to minimize the amount of your time, willpower necessary to transition into a main state of unbroken concentration. And so let's go back to this idea. It's being able to form time periods, a ritual, making it a habit. If you read Atomic Habits, then that would probably help. I haven't. I have the book. I'm like 90% of the people who own it who've never read it. But if you're able to implement this deep work throughout periods of your day, then you're going to improve your work. I don't know where I'm going with that point. Let me just explain the steps you need to take. Where you'll work and how and for how long. So you need to have a specific spot. For me, it's my desk. For you, it could be a library. It could just be a quiet place. It helps when you have a place when you sit down, you know you're going to be performing deep work, just for your mind to remember that. How you'll work once you start working. So you need a way to track this, and we'll get into this again later on. If you're not tracking your progress, your deep work's not going to be as effective because you could be basically cheating yourself out, and I've done that before. And how you'll support your work. So that's like a light exercise before. You just want to make sure you have a clear mind going into deep work. Otherwise, it's not going to be as efficient. So then I have actually made a whole video about this, but I'm going to basically summarize it into like 5 minutes. The 4 different philosophies. There are 4 of them, and these are different ones you can use for deep work. The monastic philosophy of deep work scheduling. I'm just going to read these out and I'll explain what they mean. The philosophy attempts to maximize deep efforts by eliminating or radically minimizing shallow obligations. So this, in my opinion, is the least likely philosophy for you to have, because it means getting rid of everything. Social media, music, video games. I guess actually no, that's fine. Get everything away from work. So anything distracting like emails or even like video calls with friends, being able to sit with yourself alone and do the work, that is the monastic philosophy. Think of it like a writer. Writers need to be alone, and this is a good strategy for them sometimes, is that all they do is focus on what they're writing and they don't really pay attention to what else is happening in the world. The second philosophy, the more likely achievable, is the bimodal philosophy, which, if you want to read this, you can. Basically, it means splitting up your deep work into sections. Say you work your normal job for like a professor, because the guy who wrote this is a professor, and he works his normal job from blah to blah, and then a certain portion of his year, he takes the time off and then really focuses on deep work. So it's segmenting your year into, hey, this is a time period of busy work, of shallow work, and then this is a period of time of complete deep work. So the rhythmic philosophy is personally my favorite. It basically argues for you to have a schedule mentality. So every morning at 7, you wake up, you do deep work from 7 to 9, and then you go about the rest of your day as you may. And it doesn't have to exactly be in the morning, but this is the best if you have a job and you want to spend more time working on something else, that you can wake up early, have deep work in the morning, and spend the rest of your day doing whatever you need to, especially if you have a busy life. For instance, there's a guy who wanted to, what exactly did he want to do? I think he wanted to do like computer programming, but he had a family and he had a job. And so he did the job and he took care of his family, but every morning from like 5 to 7, he would spend focusing on computer programming. Don't quote me on that exactly. And there's something else I want to add. And the reason I keep saying morning is because when you wake up, the second you open your eyes, you have a limited amount of willpower. And once that willpower is depleted, it's going to be a lot harder to focus. While there are ways to increase that willpower, like resting and talking to people, you're not going to have it. You're not going to be able to gain as much as you would starting out in the morning. Finally, the journalistic philosophy, which is basically doing the deep work whenever you can. And I at first thought this was the best one for me. It's too loose. I need something a little more structured. So if this does work for you, for instance, there's this guy named Isaacson. Maybe that's his first name, maybe that's his last name. But anytime you would find some free time, he would switch into deep work mode and work on his book. So those are the 4 different philosophies to review. The monastic philosophy is no distractions, only deep work. The bimodal philosophy is I can do shallow work just like half of the year and then deep work the other half of the year. The rhythmic philosophy is from this time to this time, I always do deep work every day. And then journalistic philosophy is I do deep work whenever I feel I have free time. Watch out! These are some warnings. The principle of least resistance. In a business setting without clear feedback on the impact of various behaviors to the bottom line, we tend toward behaviors that are easiest in the moment. In other words, when you're given a task, you tend to do the easiest one to do, or like part to do. So it's hard to do the difficult steps, which is why using deep work can help you get there quickly and efficiently, and will set you apart because not many people are going to tackle those difficult tasks right off the bat. The second thing to watch out for is busyness as a proxy for productivity. In the absence of clear indicators what it means to be productive and valuable in their jobs, many knowledge workers turn back toward an industrial indicator of productivity, which is doing lots of stuff in a visible manner. Just because you look like you're busy doesn't mean you are busy. For instance, if I have a ton of papers on my desk and I'm trying to look like I'm doing statistics, or I'm doing some marketing work, or I'm doing something for whatever your job is, homework, then it looks like I'm doing my work, but in reality, I'm not even focused. I got my AirPods in, listening to music, I have a video playing on my screen. I'm just totally distracted. And so that's why you need to watch out. Make sure you're not just doing the easy thing. Make sure you're always doing the hardest thing first. Or maybe not necessarily the hardest thing, but the most important thing. And then finally, busyness as a proxy. Just because you look busy doesn't mean you're actually being productive. Okay, let's go back up. There are 4 disciplines to deep work. First is a focus on the widely important. The more you try to do, the less you actually accomplish. And that's why I have this little diagram here. This idea comes from Alex Hormozi. By the way, Cal Newport is the author of this book. I actually highly recommend his other books, but this is a great one to start with. I'll have a link to it in the description if you're interested. But for discipline, you want to focus on what's widely important, because think of it like this. Imagine your financial success is on the other side of this river. You're here. You're trying to get over to the other side. So you start building this bridge. Maybe it's a side hustle where you collect scooters. I don't know. That's what came to mind. But then, you know what? I'm going to start another side hustle. I'm going to start drop shipping on the side. And then also start a social media channel. And then I also want to start a SMA, a social media marketing agency. And notice how you've made profit on 0 of them because the bridge never reached the other side. You're spreading yourself too thin. You're trying to accomplish too much. But if I were just to focus on, let's say, a YouTube channel, and that I focus all my efforts instead of spreading them across several bridges on the YouTube channel, look at that. I can now reach to the money side. And then at that point, if you want, you can start building another bridge. But you have to reach and focus on a certain thing and keep focused to that in order to succeed. If you spread yourself too thin or trying to do too much at once, you'll be mediocre in everything. You don't want to be a jack of all trades. Well, that's a different conversation. But let's talk about discipline 2, act on lead measures. Now this one's actually really smart. Lead measures come right after work, rather than lag measures, which come after time. So for me, a lead measure would be measuring how many videos I put out. If I put out 14 shorts, 3 videos, and a podcast a week, I see that as a successful week. The views are a lag measure. They show, okay, this video I worked on actually did really well, or this video I worked on did really bad, it did poorly. And that is not the measurement I want to be focusing on, because lag measures come after time. I don't have that instant gratification of successful work when I complete a video, because you post something, it usually gets 0 views. And right now I'm a smaller channel, so if you want a smaller vibe and to see me grow and to learn marketing, then consider subscribing. But we got more things to talk about. So let's talk about discipline number 3. Keep a compelling scoreboard. To my right, I actually have a whiteboard. I haven't been the best at this, but I'm trying to start keeping track. I'm trying to keep track of all the hours I spend working for this channel. That way I can see, hey, I'm making progressive movement. Right now I have like a checklist of all the of the shorts I finished for this upcoming week. I'm posting this today, so I guess that works with timeline wise. But you want to keep track of your deep work hours. That's usually the easiest one to start with. And finally, create a cadence of accountability. Keep track of weekly progress to make sure you are working correctly and honestly. So if you aren't doing like a weekly review, which I'm not, that's a bad decision, and I probably will starting this week. Yeah, I didn't pass if that's like a thing. But yeah, keeping yourself accountable is important. Otherwise, you're just going to be like, okay, I think I'm doing well. You don't think. You're cheating yourself out. And I don't want you cheating yourself. So let's move on to, 2 more points. And these are quick ones. How to do breaks. How do breaks work? Whoa. So these are just a few points. Downtime aids insight. It's important to take breaks. For instance, God took rest. He rested on the 7th day. But in a brain sense, you only have a limited amount of willpower, a limited amount of focus. So once you run out of that, you're going to need to have some downtime. Now, what you do with your downtime, that is up to you. If it's a positive downtime where you do something that actually helps you, awesome. If it is something that hurts you and hurts your focus, then maybe you want to cut that out. For me, it's probably doom scrolling. But we'll cut that out eventually. Downtime helps recharge the energy needed to work deeply. If you aren't resting, you aren't going to be able to work deeply. But don't be stupid and don't be like me, where you rest and say, okay, now I can deep work. Just do the deep work first and then take a break after, even if it's not very efficient. Finally, the work that evening downtime replaces is usually not important. So if you are working late into the night, for instance, or if you're working during times where you could be spent with your friends or your family, maybe it's not the most important thing to do. Especially, this is from a typical job sense, like an average job, where looking at your emails past your work time is not a smart idea. While working at night is different on person, maybe you actually work the best at night, and that's awesome for you to do whatever works best for you. For me, it's definitely not, and I know I need to value my sleep, so I typically won't do any deep work near the end of the day because sleep is more important. Internet balance. So there are two just different ideas. There's the any benefit approach to network tool selection and the craftsman approach. So the first one is you are justified in using a network tool if you can identify any possible benefit to its use or anything you might possibly miss out on if you don't use it. So this is the idea that anything social media wise must be good, or anything, this is from marketing standpoint from David Ogilvy, anything that is marketing, any advertising is good advertising. No, not all social media use is good social media use. For instance, if you're a marketer and you're spending hours and hours and hours scrolling on your phone and calling it market research, it doesn't count. I wish it did, but it doesn't count. Or the craftsman approach is identifying the core factors that determine success and happiness in your professional life. Adopt a tool if it's positive, or if it positive impacts on these factors substantially outweighs its negative impact. So actually, I just remember an example from the book. So there's a company who would keep in touch with their their clients every single day, and at one point the worker somehow read deep work or heard the deep work ideas, or not the worker, the manager, and he or she told all of her employees to take off this day and don't talk to any of their clients. And so everyone freaked out. No, you can't do this. But once they did it, they actually found, number one, that clients respected their time off, and two, they actually performed better work. So being in more touch, having better communication, actually resulted in worse work. Interesting fact. So that's just basically how to lock in however long this video is. If it did help, save the video, because sometimes you got to watch the same thing 4 times over the course of a month to lock them in. But if you are actually interested in continuing and reading this book, it's actually a really good read. I left a lot of it out. I just took what I thought were the most key components. But if you are interested, there's a link in the description. Otherwise, bro, appreciate you watching to the end. Hope you have an amazing day. Godspeed.